lesson 4 in our study of the book of James, playing favorites. We're in James chapter 2. We're looking at verses 1 through 13 today. Do not show favoritism, richness in faith, and obeying the royal law. So without further ado, we're going to begin with the begin. James 2, verses 1 through 4. My brothers, as believers in our Lord Jesus Christ, don't show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in shabby clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing the fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand there or sit on the floor by my feet. Have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Okay. It's kind of a straightforward kind of a comment that he's making there, isn't it? A couple of things I want you to note before we get into discussing it. One is, notice that he is addressing Christians. He's not addressing people in general. If you go back to the first verse, you can see it. He's addressing Christians, okay? The second thing that I find very interesting is in verse 2, he uses the word that most of you have translated meeting place. He uses a word that is where we get our word synagogue, okay? As a matter of fact, every other place in the New Testament where this word is found, it's translated synagogue. Okay, here it says meeting place. Okay, I think it's interesting because it's generally accepted that James was the first of the New Testament books that was actually written down. Okay? It's generally assumed. There's some conflict, maybe Galatians, but First Thessalonians. You're a First Thessalonians man? Okay. No, I'm serious. There's some discrepancy there as to which one they think it is. But anyway, this points to the Jewish nature of the church at that point. Okay? Because he's using that term. Okay?
So why did they translate it differently?
Actually, some versions, look in your versions. Do any of you have the word synagogue? Yeah, there's very few. Because
the American Standard Version has
American Standard has synagogue. Well, it's of the devil, so we can't. No.
It can also mean just specifically assembly.
Yes, it can. That's the reason that it's translated meeting place here, is because it means a gathering place. I mean, a gathering of people. Okay, it means both. Well, but that's part of the thing. You know, you need to realize that the early church was made up of Jews. A lot of those Jews probably were going to the synagogue, and there's actually been some who have suggested, I cannot find any proof of this. Perhaps you found proof of it, but I have found, that people who have said that they believe that the church actually met on Sunday at the synagogue. You ever heard of that?
Like if this was Greenvine, Texas, like the meeting place would be the synagogue. That's all there is.
Yeah. Well, and so I haven't, like I said, I haven't found any proof of that, but some preachers like to say those kind of things. But the bottom line is, the thing that I find interesting is that he was speaking to Jewish Christians. Okay, speaking to Jewish Christians. Okay, so let's talk about the subject at hand. As Christians, do we make distinctions between people? Do we discriminate between people? Are we human? Well, most of us are, What do you think? Do we? We make distinctions? Do you make it in your personal life? Do you make those in your personal life? Do you judge people by their appearance? Okay, I hadn't even thought about this, but I'm gonna ask Jesse a question. Okay, and I don't know the answer. Okay, so tell me, you have been in an environment. People come in all the time to buy appliances, right? Can you tell when somebody walks in the door if they're serious about buying or if they're not?
Have a 60-70% feeling.
Yeah,
And then as I visit with them,
that goes up
and go up or down.
or down. Yeah. Okay. So you're making those distinctions all the time. I mean, it's just, especially when you're in sales, Raylyn, in sales, you judge people.
I did a lot of training on this very topic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you guys who do that, you do that. We do it all the time. It's just human nature. We do it if we're getting somebody to work at our house. We check references, If we find out Arlen was involved in it, of course we approve it because Arlen is the god of the building industry in Brenham, Texas, right? Arlen, is that right? Yeah. No, but we do that.
Doesn't the Bible call us?
How so?
Many times it talks about separate yourself. You're not a person that hangs out with evildoers and sinners that are not willing to change and people that have ill intentions.
Okay.
And it talks about kicking a brother out of church if they don't after a couple attempts, to sin. It talks about leaving a town, taking the dust off their feet if they don't have a heart to welcome.
Okay. You're already getting down to the last question. Yeah. Okay. What? Okay. So you're saying discrimination and wisdom and discernment are all the same thing? What is the difference between distinctions and discriminations? You have discriminating taste?
You put thought into things.
Okay.
I like grape on over regular yellow mustard. That's a
You're one of those?
I'm one of those.
Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon?
Example of that. But,
Yeah. Okay.
But to say you're discriminating in this day and age, we think that is meaning that we are doing something negative.
Okay.
That's not the only definition of that word.
Okay.
It's been twisted over time.
Okay. So notice how James concludes this little statement right at the end of verse 4. Do you see the word evil in there? So what makes it evil? What makes it evil?
I think that it's like you're passing judgment on.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with any of you. I'm just asking you the question. Okay.
Not like you judge them based on not really knowing them, which is wrong.
Well, yeah, that's true. Look at your heart. Are you approaching this from an attitude of love, or are you approaching it from an attitude of advantage? Personal advantage. Okay? There's other ways of saying that, but just think about that when you look at this list here. These are some that are kind of in the news today. Racism, sexism, antisemitism. By the way, this is a pet peeve of mine. Do you know what a Semite is? It is a person who speaks one of the Semitic languages. The Semitic languages include Hebrew, Aramaic, Arab. Are you with me? I just think it's kind of funny that, we use the term anti-Semitic primarily to mean Jewish, right? Elitism, ageism, ableism, sizeism, tokenism. Skip the bottom one for right now. Those top 8. Ableism means you discriminate against somebody who is disabled in some way. For example, somebody who has to use a wheelchair, and you discriminate against them because they are not able to stand up and walk around. That is a real term. That's the official term. Ableism. Yeah. Sizeism. I have experienced sizeism many times in my life. Okay. Sizeism is usually, not always, but usually because someone is, how shall we say, a little more rotund than the rest. Okay. Big and tall, right? Yeah, big and tall. I used to get dirty looks from shoe salesmen when I would walk into a store and say, "Do you have anything in a size 16?" I got filthy looks. Get out of my store. Okay. What's tokenism? Okay. Here it comes. You ready? We're not a racist organization. We have a black man who is a part of our organization. Do you understand? A token. Tokenism.
And that can also be, it's not just with race, but with, somebody that just shows up and pretends to go through the motions.
That's right. That's right. Elitism. Do you know what that means? This is one we as Christians, we have a real problem with elitism. I'm going to explain to you how. Some of y'all watched football yesterday. Did any of you watch the Colorado football game, Colorado and Nebraska? You watched that? You know who the coach for the Colorado Buffalo is? What? Deion Sanders? Coach Prime. Okay. Are you aware that he is a very seriously minded Christian? Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, he's even faced lawsuits since he's been at Colorado for praying with his team. Okay. And I think there's a lawsuit in progress right now, if I'm not mistaken, by the people against atheists against God and society or something like that. Anyway.
Bob, how do you
Now-
prove somebody's praying?
If
it was against the law, how would you?
Well, because he did it in a locker room full of his teammates, his team members. Okay. He prayed for them. And I even read the prayer. We thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for being here. We thank you that in all of this, you are preeminent. And he closed out in Jesus' name. Amen.
But is there a law that says when prayer is or is not?
Well, it doesn't matter to the people who want to sue. Of course, they've been, there's quite a bit of, how shall we say, blowback on it. But here's the thing. This is where we as Christians become elitists. We like it when somebody famous turns out to be a Christian. We like it a lot because that validates us. Now you say, no, it doesn't validate me. I don't even know who Coach Prime is. Believe me, there are many Christians who they jump on that stuff. I've done it. I've done it my whole life. And elitism says somebody who is of the upper crust, somebody who is at the pinnacle, somebody who is up there, they are to be revered more than the rest of us. I'll guarantee you, if Coach Prime walked in that door, we would find him the best seat to sit down in. I said if Coach Prime walked in, no.
He'd probably take it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying, we've done that our whole lives. We esteem certain people. I worked with a pastor once who knew I'm not saying he was elitist, but he knew the income of every new member that came in. He knew. Are you with me? We tend to place certain things in high regard. Okay? We drop names, don't we? I never will forget the time that the president of Bluebell, Ziegenmein, saw to it that D. Young, my son, had Bluebell for his birthday at the Bluebell Aquatic Center. See what I did there? I hold him in high regard. And I love dropping his name because that means I know somebody. Right? I know somebody. We do it all the time. Let's talk about religionism. Excessive or affected religious zeal. And you're going, I don't get it, right? What is it? Think about it. Think through it. Religionism. When you place yourself in a position where you say, in an excessive way or an affected religious zeal way, when you say, I got it all together because I'm a Christian, and you don't. Religionism is a form of discrimination. We should see all people as standing in need of the love of Christ. Right? I love those guys. It's Austin Lounge Lizards. Okay, before we move on, do you have any other comments or questions about the first 4 verses? Anything? Yes, they're called the Austin Lounge Lizards. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. James 2, verses 5 through 7. Listen, my dear brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have insulted the poor. It's not the rich who are exploiting you. Is it not the rich who are exploiting you? Are they not the ones who are dragging you into court? Are they not the ones who are slandering the noble name of him to whom you belong? Rich and poor. Okay? Which is better, rich or poor? I've been poor and I've been rich. Rich is better. You ever heard that? It's an old quote. Been around forever in different forms and all that. Oliver Warbucks, you remember him? I've been rich and poor, and a poor man sure has a lot less to worry about. And Annie replies, yeah, and a lot less to eat sometimes. I'd rather worry about a few millions I had than about how to get 2 bits.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you're poor, how is God growing you right here? He's growing you.
Yeah. Okay. You'd rather be poor. Yeah, I got you.
knowledge to her situation.
Okay. Look back at James 1, verses 9 through 11. Just right there. What does he say about the poor there and the rich? What?
Man's money is go away.
Rich man's money is going to go away?
Kind of like I think it was, kind of broke down in the rhyme, and that is part of it, by rich finance here. And somebody mentioned to him, is like, no, he made more money yesterday than you made the entire run of your book. He's like, yeah, but I got something he'll never have. The guy asked him, what's that? I have enough.
Oh, yeah. Somebody, I forget who it was. Somebody asked a very wealthy person one time. I want to say it was Rockefeller or somebody like that. What? Was it Rockefeller? So how much money is enough? Just a little bit more is what he said. Just a little bit more. Okay. What else does the Bible say about the rich and the poor? I heard somebody mention one. Eye of the needle. Okay. What about the eye of the needle? It's easier for the camel to go through the eye of the needle than a rich man to get into heaven. Okay. Anything else? Somebody look up Proverbs 13:41. Somebody got it?
Got it.
Leviticus 19:15. Matthew 6:24. Yep. Okay, Proverbs 22:2.
Proverbs 22.
22:2.
Proverbs 22.
Luke 16:19 through 31. Actually, we're not going to read that one, but Matthew 19:24. Somebody got it? Matthew 6:24. Got it? How about Matthew 19:24? What does Proverbs 13:41 say?
Proverbs 13:41 does not exist in my life.
Oh, I wonder what it's supposed to be.
14 possibly?
What?
14?
14?
13 and 14 says he who scores instruction with 3
Nope, that's not it. I have no idea off the top of my head. I remember when I looked it up.
Says, one man pretends to be rich yet has nothing.
There we go.
The other pretends to be poor yet has great wealth.
But has great wealth. Exactly. How about Leviticus 19:15?
Show partiality to the poor, on favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly.
Go to Proverbs 22:2. Okay. How about Matthew? We're going into the New Testament now. Matthew 6:24.
Devoted to one, despise the other, cannot serve God and be enslaved.
And Matthew 19:24.
And again, I say to you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God.
Now, would all of you look at Luke 16? All of you look at Luke 16. You'll probably find a heading that will give it away, but look it over. Luke 16, verses 19 through 31. What is that about? What's the story there? The rich man and Lazarus. What does it say about the rich man? What was he like? Too proud to help the poor man? Did he eat well? What? He lived in splendor. How about Lazarus? What was his life like?
Very poor.
Very poor. How do you know that? What does it say? Had sores. He was a beggar. Called him a beggar. Wait a minute. What? He longed for the crumbs Just the crumbs that would fall off the rich man's table. Rich man Dives and poor man Lazarus. By the way, Dives is not in your script, so please do not try to find it. Okay. All right, guys, what does that tell us about the poor? What does it tell us? Okay, let me ask it this way. It's in the law. Okay. It's in the words of Jesus. It's in the Proverbs, sayings about how to live life God's way. What does it say about the poor? How about this? God's watching out for them. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's something going on there that God wants to make sure happens. You remember what the welfare system was for the poor people in the time of, let's say, I don't know, Ruth? Allowed to glean in the fields. And that was the law. That was the law. If you drop something, leave it there. Because the poor people need to come along and get them some. So how is it that God likes poor people more than he does rich people? What? Did you not just hear what I said? Oh, they don't need him? Yeah, but they don't know that they need him. They don't think that they need him. So what's the big difference here? Poor man's down on his knees looking up. Rich man's standing there proud and all that, looking at all that he has. Okay. Well, yeah, in so many words. Yeah. Anything else you see there about rich men and poor men, or rich people and poor people? I want you to just keep in mind, God, you remember back from James 1? God is interested in those who have no personal power. God cares for them in special ways because no one else will. Let's go on. Verses 8 through 13. If you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing well. But if you show favoritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not commit murder. If you do not commit adultery, but do commit murder, you have become a lawbreaker. Speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. What is the royal law? He kind of says it, but what's the significance of him using the term royal law instead of the Lord's command? Beg your pardon? Okay. Love your neighbor as yourself. See, like the golden rule, right? Do unto others, right? Okay. Here's the distinction. For those in power, that's the golden rule. Isn't it? It's also this. But that's not the royal law according to the King of Kings. That was the law according to the king. That was the law according to Caesar. Do you understand what I'm saying? The royal law supersedes man's law. Now I have to ask you a question. Is verse 10 fair? If you've broken one law, you've broken them all. Is it fair? Why not?
Well, you don't, okay, so you don't have to like what you say.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, well, what were you saying, Brian? Oh, you didn't go there.
That's our favorite president.
Oh. Oh. I don't know whether I can invite you back to this class anymore if you're going to talk like that. Let me tell you. If you're in school, and I was a school teacher, right? If you broke a school rule, it didn't matter which one it was, it still had to be dealt with. Okay? Because you broke one of the rules. And the rules are the rules. Right? I mean, it's just that's the way life is. If you break a law, a civil law, you are you ready for it? Law breaker. I know I'm not dumbing it down. But if you break a law, you are a law breaker. If you sped to church this morning on the highway out here, you broke the law. You are a law breaker. Now, why are you elbowing Corey like that? Oh, that reminds me of one time when we were driving down in Houston. Pam and I were, and I believe in driving not aggressively, but forcefully. Okay. And I pulled in front of somebody, and she just gasped when, and she said, "Oh, Bob, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I trust you. I trust you. But there's so many people around here who drive just like you." If you break a law, you're a lawbreaker. And that's what he's saying here. He's saying, don't think you're better than somebody else because you did this and they did something worse. And yes, Brian, it is true. We love to point the finger at somebody who does something that we know we would never do, instead of praying for them, instead of lifting them up, instead of, when the time comes, actually discussing things with them in a loving way. There is an attitude of love that must be a part of the Christian's life.
Hey, but Bob,
Yeah.
always occurs to me, it's all in the fact we discussed a little bit earlier. If you've broken one, you broke all.
Yeah.
So if you look at one and think worse than the other, I mean.
Oh, yeah, but we do. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. In 30 seconds, I'm going to tie this up and put a bow on it. Yes, James says we must keep the law, and so does Jesus, if you read those passages. Jesus says, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. We've looked at that before. Okay? The royal law of love, mercy, and grace. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. Grace is getting what you don't deserve. Keep those things in mind. We've looked at that before. Now, here's the bottom line of it. When you look at James 2:13 with Matthew 6:15, we as Christians, if we are not going to show mercy, mercy does not mean you agree with the sin that someone is involved in. Mercy does not mean you withhold the truth from them, just like Pam didn't. You understand? Mercy means you look at them through the eyes of God's love, God's compassion, because you're loving and giving mercy and grace to others. especially those who you may not like, especially those who are different from you, especially those who have nothing to give you in return. Loving those kinds of people is a measure of your love for and your relationship with your Heavenly Father. We don't love to get His attention. We don't love to get His love. We love because He first loved us and commands us to love others in His name. Let's pray. Father, we thank you that when we were sinners, you loved us so much that you sent Christ to die for us. We didn't deserve it, but your grace abounded. You showed mercy to us in the midst of our sin. And you gave us what we could not earn on our own with our own goodness. Father, thank you for loving us that way. And thank you for giving us that same ministry of reconciliation in loving others in your name. Help us to do so wherever we are, wherever we go. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.